Hello everybody, welcome to Sonic Talk episode 677. I'm just reaching across here because I forgot to press the backup recording. I'm going to do that now because, as we know, always worth having a backup, a plan B. I'm just waiting for this to boot before I get into anything meaningful. Come on then, load up. Gosh, this Zoom is very slow today. Isn't that always the case when you need it? Anyway, I'll wait for it to boot up. Yeah, this is the podcast to do with music technology, which I'm ably demonstrating, and maybe the lack of understanding in it as well, which I'm also ably demonstrating.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's what we're here for, the plan B. But welcome, everybody. Yes, Sonic Talk, you can find us on in audio, where we stream also live to Facebook Live. We should be on Facebook Live. Hello, if you're all out there. Also stream to Twitch. We also shoot a pre-show a little bit before. I was just noodling around on the little new Create Audio Pittsburgh modular collaborative modules. Mr. Phil Turr and Mr. I'm trying to remember what it's called, Mr. Captain Big O oscillator. So please do stay tuned for that. If you're interested, you can join us on Patreon. It's just a simple matter of heading over to patreon.com/Sonicstate and just a couple of bucks will get you the pre-show stuff, and there's also other exclusive content if you want to spend a bit more. You know, it's entirely up to you. We appreciate the support, but just want to point you in that direction. Matt, I can hear your speakers coming back quite loudly. I wonder if you could just turn them down a bit. I do beg your pardon, which I may as well just come straight to you because it's time to introduce our gang. Mr. Matt Hodson, aka Maths, who is there over in Brighton. How are you, Matt?
I'm good, actually. I'm although a little bit tired and a little bit sunburned. I got up this morning. I've taken some leave from my daytime job and decided to go for a nice 3-hour-long walk on the South Downs, which was rather nice. And
lovely.
Just got out into nature. And I just wanted to say, actually, if any of you have not been out the house for the past couple of days and still in a bit of a lockdown blues kind of thing, get out into the countryside, treat yourself to some fresh air. It's really important, you know, to balance all this kind of technology and studio time with a bit of outdoor time. So that's my little message for you all
that's
today.
A good message, and I will. I'm feeling the. Funnily enough, I'm tired today as well. I don't know what I couldn't sleep last night. I was on a show yesterday, which was this thing called Office Hours. If I bring that up here, and it was really interesting. A lot of guests. It was like a lot of panelists, and I was quizzed for an hour. It's a bit like being in front of a grand jury or a kind of parliamentary committee. I'd imagine. I felt a bit like Dominic Cummings or something. You know, being sort of quick fire question, but it was really good, and I thoroughly recommend you check that out. It's Office Hours/Global. If I post the link in the show notes, I think I've got that. Where is that? If I didn't actually make a post, so I'll just do it out here. Office Hours.Global. And I was one of the guests. They broadcast every day, and it's literally quickfire questions, all to do with video and streaming and photography. And they're all very smart people, so I felt quite intimidated, but it was good fun. Yes, but outside, that would be nice. I did walk to work today. I suppose that's something, eh, Matt? I mean, that's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, right. And other than that, just been doing loads of music. I'm so much into the music vibe at the minute. I'm just having a run with that. I think since I've got this new live performance case thing sorted out, it's just been really sort of giving me loads of vibe to just start writing again. Well, I'm continuously writing, as you know. In fact, I'm doing a live stream later on, part 2 of this performance case that I put together, which I tried to stream last week, I think it was, but my USB fell over and the camera died and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going again tonight. If anyone wants to join us. And I'll be going through like the routing and the processing, the side chaining, the voicing, effects, all those kind of things. If you join me live, you can ask me questions about it as well if you want.
What time's that tonight, Matt?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay. I posted the link in the chat room, so you should all be able to see that. And also we have, I don't know where to go. I'm going to come right to left. Mr. Yoad Nevo, who's there at Nevo Sound, home of the hits, home of a very specific hit, which is, I would like to point out if you haven't actually already checked it out. I'm just trying to find me mouse now. If you haven't already checked it out, do check out the Sonic album, Bandcamp. If you check that, Sonic 001, 18 tracks. We did a great video with Yoad about the track Waiting for You he did with Nina Smith. How are you, Yoad? Have you been busy?
Very busy. Very busy. It seems like I haven't left the chair since I've been on the show 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So, yeah. We can continue from where we pick up from where we left it, really.
Right. Well, I can't tell, but I'm sure you've changed clothes and sort of been to sleep and stuff like that. So at the very least.
Yeah, the trick is always wear a black T-shirt, and then you're always fine.
Continuity. Yeah, I get you.
Exactly.
Nice one. Well, lovely to have you, Yoad, and I look forward to further chats in a bit. And we've also got Mr. Gaz Williams, who's there in his studio in Bristol. How are you, Gaz? You're back on the streaming wagon again, or not on the wagon? How does it work? Back on the streaming truck.
On the truck. Yes, I'm going to be back tonight after Matt's show. Actually, I'm going to be on at 8 p.m, so hopefully that won't overlap with my take on the UDO Super 6, something that I'm really excited to talk about because, and in fact, why did I buy it? That's going to be the question. But I just want to say, Nick, that if you go to the officehours.global, it says focus on Nick Butt of Sonicstate. I'm glad it doesn't say focus on Nick's butt of Sonicstate.
Oh, gosh.
You might want to get them to change that because, that's the last thing we want to be focusing on.
I didn't even notice. God. Okay, right. Well,
sorry,
yeah. Thanks.
I'm just trying to make light humour out of that. There.
Maybe they'll think I'm related to one of the Manchester United Dream Team footballers. There's a Nicky Butt, isn't there, who was one of the footballers there. So yeah. Anyway, it was a great show, and honestly, for any of you guys who are into streaming, it's worth having on because the first hour every day is just people sort of answering questions from the audience to do with streaming and cameras and that, and it is literally, you could slow it down. There's so much information in there. It's brilliant.
Right. What more is there to know, though? What more is there to know?
There's a lot to know, Gaz. That's the one thing I'm figuring out. A lot. A very, very great deal. Let me see if I can get you a bit more central. There we are. Yes. Anyway, that's our guest. That's your panelist for this week. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us again. We've got our friends in the YouTube chat. Nice to see you all there, and in the IRC and in the Discord. We're going to see if we can figure out a way to kind of unify this chat and maybe bring in some questions and figure out a way to do it, because we want to have a way that they get highlighted. Anyway, that's all plans for the future. This is that's what comes of watching other people who've been doing it for ages in a slightly different way. But that's what I'm hoping. So anyway, let's start with some news. What's the first thing that's coming up? Yes. Well, this is finally here now. The Elk Live hardware has finally been launched. You can buy it now. I think they've got a production run coming. This is the little box that kind of essentially plugs into your router and can plug into your computer as well for USB audio. Creates a very low latency real-time performative connection. Most of these are quite low mileages. It's something like 100 milliseconds per 100 kilometers, I believe. So it's not perfect.
1 millisecond.
But 1 millisecond, I do beg your pardon. Anyway, there's loads of performance stuff here. I mean, I've actually got, now I can use my new shot. Hey, stand by, everybody. This is the Elk box, which I've got a picture of it. So it's a little box. I think it's got like a Raspberry Pi in it and an Elk OS hat, which allows it to kind of run. It's got 2 I/O on the combi and jack outputs, but it's also got ADAT I/O, USB audio out, and Ethernet that you plug into your computer, and a USB host port, and it allows you, and MIDI as well. So I mean, essentially it's like a dedicated streaming thing for point to point. You have to have it at either end, and this, I'm really interested to see whether this is one of the solutions to the problem we've all been struggling with, because I mean, I know me and you have been talking about doing something on VST Connect, and we've tried, and me and Matt have done something with RTP MIDI, Matt, but it's all quite but not quite. So maybe this will be the answer. What have you been keeping an eye, because you did some of the shots, you did some of the stuff when you talked to the people at NAMM and Super,
it's something. Yeah, it's something I've been really, really following closely, and now with the reveal of what the actual box looks like and what the facilities of the box is, this is all kind of great now in terms of it's that much closer to reality. When are they available? It's imminent, isn't it? It's not quite available yet. Is that right?
I think it's quite soon. I think it's pre-orders,
imminent.
Isn't it?
Yeah, pre-orders at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's really good about this, I think, is that they're clearly identifying that certain people are going to be very interested in this. Myself, absolutely. I'm all about playing and about playing in real time. So I'm really excited about this. Clearly, the latency issue is a massive issue, but 1 millisecond per 100 kilometers is pretty cool. That means certainly Europe-wide jamming is all kind of
could be possible,
totally
couldn't it? Yeah.
doable. And also America, UK jamming is just about all right, I think. I think you'll be around the 10 millisecond mark there.
Well, that's a big room, isn't it? 10
California.
milliseconds. Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, this is very promising. But I think the hardware is interesting in what they've done is they know that most people are going to have an audio interface. So I see the inclusion of ADAT really good there. So you could essentially be going 8 in, 8 out into your existing setup. Or the thing itself is a class compliant audio interface as well. So as a standalone audio interface. And then, of course, it's got the most important part of it, which is the Ethernet input on there. So as a device, I mean, it's fairly keenly priced, I think.
$279, I think, introductory price. Which is,
that's introductory price.
I think it's going to be about $349. So it's not. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's also quite specialised, isn't it? It's something very specific.
Yeah, but I think the way that you can use it, though, as a block on a box on its own, connected to a laptop or to your bigger system with multi-channel audio, I think makes it, the hardware, I think a clever thing. Now, do we know, is there subscription charges for using the service?
That is a very good question. There's no, because it must be something in between, some sort of server, mustn't there? I guess maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
There is no. I didn't get any information about that. Actually, good
so
question.
Elk, the driving force behind this, it's all about the Elk OS, the OS that's running inside of this box. So I guess on the Raspberry Pi, and they've successfully been trying this out in, I think, Stockholm over the last few years, and then recently over the last year they've been doing these much larger distances, and to all reports, it does appear to be working. So this is actually, I think, really exciting for the players, for people who want to play in real time. I mean, it still feels like the dream,
Yeah.
So I'm going to hold back a certain amount of my enthusiasm until, if I can do like a 16th note funk groove and be bang in the pocket, then it gets my thumbs up. But until then, this is potentially very promising.
Exactly. Yoad, I imagine you're going to introduce the concept of physics, which means some of these concepts, some of the things that they're claiming are kind of impossible from a sort of just from a physics point of view. I mean, when there is latency involved in this because it's of distance and whatnot, but it's an interesting concept. I mean, you've obviously got interest in Listen To, but that's not necessarily bi-directional, is it? The way that works, but it's very effective.
It could be, but you still have some latency. With this, with the Elk, I think that what they do is they package the audio into packets that suit their own kind of transmitting protocol. So, and if you did that on the computer, you'll have to go through the OS and memory and all that, and that in itself will create enough latency that it won't feel like real time. So they kind of have their way of dealing with that. And it seems to work fine. It will be interesting to see how it reacts after, how people react after a lot of people have used it and different distances, and seeing how reliable it is. Because the one thing it allows you is to have a live session at the same time. If if there are glitches or something like that and you lose a take, then that would be a little bit annoying. Although I don't want to sound like Louis C.K. in his thing about the phones, that it's going to space and all that, like complaining about new technologies that haven't even that just arrived. So it looks very promising. The thing is that on the video you see them jamming and the video is synchronized, but here the audio may be synchronized or have a little bit of latency, but you would look at someone through Zoom or Skype or something like that, which will the kind of visual interaction will not have the same thing as if you're playing in the same room. So that could even be a little bit misleading in terms of kind of the groove, and visual cues are very important.
Yeah, the visual cues are an incredibly important part of playing live. That's a very good point, Yoad. I mean, yeah. Good.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, I mean, I guess sorry to interrupt there. Yeah.
No, I'm saying I don't want to sound like someone who's kind of complaining about something that is incredible, actually. So
I think the thing that's going to be interesting about this, because it's a class compliant audio interface, I mean, it's almost like, well, if you need an audio interface that's got that capability, I mean, I don't know how it sounds or anything, but you could presumably record your local sessions anyway and then send them up. It's more about the performance aspect of it rather than sending the full quality bandwidth to somebody else for the full session. So that would be kind of interesting. I don't know how that's going to work. So, I mean, essentially, you're paying a bit more for maybe twice as much as you would expect for an audio interface, but it's got this capability built in if it does that as well.
But does it have a good mic preamp? Does it have a high Z? Input? Question. Because if you buy something for 300 quid, you expect it to kind of tick all the boxes in terms of the sound card. So I think it's a great thing, and it's quite amazing that it actually works, and it will be good to see how it does.
Yeah. I know, Matt, is this something, I mean, because you're very much geared around performance stuff. I mean, I guess, you've done stuff live with drummers and whatnot. I mean, is that something that you'd kind of like to introduce a third party into, if it could be done remotely as well? Because there could be all sorts of potential for that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I love working with live drummers with the modular stuff. I've done that at a number of places like Superbooth and what have you. And a lot of the drummers, they already have a setup where mics are set up, the kit's there obviously, and they're there. So the ability for us to kind of do that over the web is brilliant, because a lot of, let's say, technologists and producers who have got a lot of kit, to get together with someone, go somewhere and jam, you've got to dismantle your rig, pack it all together, stick it in a car, go set it up somewhere. It doesn't sound the same when you set it up. You forgot a couple of USB cables or something. Whereas here, you can kind of just do it from your studio to one another. It's not going to be bang on perfect, but this seems the closest we've got yet for this sort of level of music. We've seen with Tim Exile's Endless, where you've got that almost instant ability, but that's a different game. That's not really live, although you can record live audio into it. I think this seems to be more focused at those that might be in bands, wanting to work more with live musicians around the country and stuff. And where I work as well at BIM, at the music colleges, we've got 5 in the UK, we've got 2 in Germany, and the ability now to sort of cross-pollinate, if you like, and collaborate with our students across those campuses. So you could have a drummer in Brighton, a vocalist in Bristol, another one in Manchester, and sort of form these kind of bands and perform together near instantly. I think it's great. And the bottom line is, bringing people together through music in this way. I know we're just about to come out of the lockdown world on the 19th, which is good, but for some of us, it's been a real struggle, and music can be a really, really healthy thing for people to bond over and what have you. So anything like this that's coming to market looks great. These kind of things always say to me it's a stepping stone to somewhere where we're going to eventually end up down the line anyway. Like with any technology, I hope in 5 years' time we're looking at technology that is way beyond this. We can't even imagine it, and we've got this amazing collaboration visually, audio,
Yeah.
You know,
I wonder whether
so
or not
I'm-
if we
yeah.
synced the MIDI clocks between our sessions, like we demonstrated that could be done, and there's a fixed latency, isn't there, to that when you're doing that? That maybe that's something that could, you know, be adjusted. There'd be tools that to allow you to. I mean, this is the age-old problem,
Yeah.
and you know, it'd be interesting if this gets closer to fixing it. I mean, you know, if you're actually investing in some hardware that enables it, it's a very different proposition to just trying, you know, RTP MIDI or VST Connect or
Yeah.
any of the other kind of potential things. I mean, because the way that most of the other, like Endless does, is there's an 8-bar loop and it all gets synced for everybody. So when someone joins in, it's what they're hearing, but then it's all synced up together. But the actual, because it's looping, it's possible to synchronize everything together. You know, that's sort of makes it a lot more straightforward. Oh, incidentally, we've got an interview with Tim Exile coming up sometime soon. I haven't got an exact
great.
date for it, where we just talk a little bit about the whole thing with Endless and plans and where it's going and what it's been like and stuff. So well worth checking out. But yeah, this is an interesting development, and I do hope that there is actually some development on it. Anyway, I think we'll just take a quick break for our friends over at iZotope, and I think I'm going to press the right button.
iZotope Producers Club is a one-of-a-kind membership for producers ready to take their tracks to the next level. Once you join, you'll gain access to powerhouse iZotope plugins and a curated selection of tools from our partners, such as Melodyne from Celemony. Plus, as long as you're a member, you'll get every future update to the iZotope plugins in your membership for no extra cost. We'll also regularly serve you new curated content like exclusive inspiration-sparking sample packs and preset packs, and industry-leading training ranging from our own tutorials to vocal production lessons from the world-renowned Berklee Online, taught by Grammy-winning producer and engineer Prince Charles Alexander. With new content being added every month full of valuable production techniques, tips and tricks, and solutions to common production problems, becoming a member is an investment in your career that grows as you and your career do. For more information on iZotope Producers Club, head to iZotope.com.
In joining them, there's also Music Production Suite Pro, which is a little bit cheaper, less expensive, but they also have a whole bunch of other software which you can save. If you go to iZotope.com/sonictalk, you can use the code SONIC10 at checkout and save 10% on any iZotope plugin or bundle, not hardware and not subscriptions, obviously. Okay, right, let's get on to number 2. Actually, we'll do this one because I know, Matt, you're a big fan of this, so let's get into a bit of Bitwig action. Bitwig 4 announced today. I think it went live, or maybe it was last night. We've actually got a piece we shot with David Linnenbank, where we deep dive into the new features. It's comping, which is keeping it right up there with the Ableton gang. In fact, I think they introduced comping into Live 11 Lite yesterday at the same time. Obviously a bit of competition going on there, and really interesting operators which allow probability for MIDI note events, audio events, and tempo kind of curves, and really, so you can just have a 2-bar pattern and kind of basically programming up like a more complex sequencer. I'm going to come to you first, Matt, because you're a big, I know you're a big
Love it.
Bitwig user. So are you excited about this? Have you been?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen any of my sort of live streams, the track from scratch where I'm just using Bitwig, you'll see that I'm a big advocate of the direction that they're going in and what they've been able to do, just how flexible the programming is. I was really fortunate. I managed to set up them to do a number of talks around our UK colleges, and they came around and showed the students really what it was. And I think for the first time, it really hit them like, oh, you know, they're starting to become, or are big players now in the DAW scene. There was just things that they were doing with it, which really surprised me. I mean, the grid in itself is such a playground, and to use that to sort of, I use that with a modular, but I mean, just to use it on its own as a sequencer is absolutely fantastic. The modulation that you can throw around the place, this new probability as well is really, really cool. If you've seen my live streams, you'll see that I'm into kind of probability and just playing around with triggers and stuff and making things interesting music. It's all built into it now. It looks really, really, really good. One of the other cool things as well, I don't know if you know this, there's things like you can take a sidechain input from any point in the signal path. So if you've got a kick drum which has got a compressor on it and then an EQ and then some reverb and then some distortion, you can actually take the sidechain not just from the kick drum, but you could take it after the compressor, before the reverb, or after the distortion, after the reverb, or something like that. So you can take sidechain inputs from different points of the signal path and apply that obviously to other audio signals to come up with really interesting effects and to help really gel things together. I just love the direction that they're moving into with this. And I don't know if you know how their people listening here, how their subscription goes, but you pay for it, and you're getting these updates pretty much monthly, and some of them are pretty chunky. I remember when they threw the grid out there, that was quite a hefty upgrade. I haven't actually had a look to see if there's any new bits that they're throwing into the grid. I'm sure there is. There's probably some new elements.
They didn't mention, because it's a 4.0 upgrade. One other thing that is worth mentioning at this point is, because they are multi-platform, they are already pre-compiled for ARM chips, so they are M1 native already. So if you've got you're getting M1 native, and the way that they handle plugin, all the plugins are sandboxed, so it means that you can run your old plugins within their environment, because their environment is
that's right.
Dave did explain this to me, but I didn't quite understand it. But it's
I've experienced it firsthand, where I've had a plugin crash as I'm using Bitwig, and you can choose to have this turned on or off, and the plugin crashes, but Bitwig doesn't. It tells you the plugin's crashed and it continues running, and you're just like, quick, save, you can continue with your work and just replace that plugin. So just to have that audio engine and plugin engine, I'll call it that. I don't know if it's the right thing. Yoad could probably tell us on this. But to have those separated just means a lot less headaches, a lot less crashing, and just getting on with the music, basically.
Yeah. I know, Yoad, I mean, you're a software developer, you kind of design products. Does the thought of an actual... doing a DAW, would that be? That seems like kind of a terrifying prospect. There's so much to it. I mean, is it kind of? It takes a very different level of coding, or is it sort of more of the same?
It's a monstrous project to take on, and as time goes by, there are more and more features. So to jump in the game now would mean that you will have to come out with something quite basic, and then, which is what everyone is doing. Bitwig started in a completely different place to where they're now. So yeah, it's a huge task, and it's an ongoing task, and well done to them for doing this, because I think it's a really, if I had the time to move to a different DAW as my main kind of tool, then it would be probably Bitwig.
Ah, interesting.
I mean, it will be between that and Cubase. I'm on Logic, and there are great things about it, but there are great things about other ones as well. What I really like, the comping is really cool, and the fact that you can import stuff from outside the track that you're on means that it's a kind of an offline looper, really, because you can record, you can throw in stuff, you can sequence things, and they all stay within the kind of realm of one region. So if you have that region sequenced in other places of the song, then it will reflect that. So it's almost like a range page within a region, which is very, very cool. And the really cool thing is this new edit, what they call it, those new edit features where you can change the repetition, the triggering,
operators,
the timing, the slopes, and all that. And this reminds me very much of Break Tweaker, which is a great plugin. It's a very difficult to work with it. Like you have to do something and bounce it or something like that. You don't. It's not something that you can have on and really play with all the time. And what they've managed to do is to make that into part of the workflow within a DAW, which is really, really good. The fact that you can re-trigger, obviously it reminds me of Nerve, the drum machine, and XO by XLN, which you can set the repeat for each node, the repeat rate and things like that. But they took it even further. And the fact that you can randomize the velocity within a range, this is something that XO, they have something similar to that. But it's very cool. And the fact that you can do it on a per region and move it around, it just adds so much flexibility to the I guess, creating process. But it can be used in a mix as well in a kind of creative ways, which is great. Really good, and it looks really slick and well thought of.
One thing that we looked at when I was talking with Dave is there's this idea of this global fill mode, so you can have things that repeat or only become unmuted when you go, okay, this is fill, so then your repetitive pattern will keep going, but it will just go bang, and it might be, if it's the fourth time around, there's all sorts of possibilities. Gaz, have you played with Bitwig at all? Is that something that you've? I mean, I haven't had the bandwidth to kind of take it on, because it's such a kind of Herculean task, isn't it, to take on yet another DAW. I mean, I found myself in Reaper quite a lot, and I'm only just starting to kind of go, oh, right, I'm starting to see the potential of that, but which is a very different environment to this. Yeah, no, completely. I mean, we reviewed Bitwig on Sonic here back in 7 years ago, actually, I think it was, when version 1 first dropped, 2014, and it was very promising, but it was quite hard to sort of recommend it over Ableton Live at the time, because it hadn't really developed, as Yoad said, had all the features. But now, I mean, it absolutely is such a contender. I think the operators, comping is par for the course. When you get into comping on whatever platform that is, going to any DAW that doesn't have comping, and is always awkward, isn't it? So comping is an evolution of DAWs. Yeah, it becomes a norm, doesn't it? It's a sort of a norm. It's almost like if you were to move from a platform and use comping a lot, then the platform you move to has to have comping, I think. Otherwise, it's a backward step. So that part of Bitwig is absolutely, very welcome, but also almost mandatory, really. However, the operators is the part which gives it its Bitwig sort of special powers. I mean, again, I don't use Bitwig as my main software. In fact, I don't use it at all, really, other than for review purposes. But it's getting tempting. I remember when we first covered Bitwig 1, the thing about it was that, watch this space. It's being built in this way, as we've been talking about, with the modular nature of the software, that is going to give it its advantages in time. So now those advantages have arrived. I think it's, it's definitely, here it is. It can stand, I think, now pretty much shoulder to shoulder with Ableton Live for all the essential things, and then they diverge a little bit. But, good. I mean, it's really good. I love it as a piece of software, in theory, but, I perhaps should start using it. So can I ask Matt then, do you use it integrated with your modular system?
I do, mate. Yeah, in fact, I get a lot of requests to do a video on how I do that, and it's pretty simple. DC coupled sound card. In fact, I've got the Bitwig branded Expert Sleepers ES8, which gives you 8 channels out, 4 channels in. I've got the expander, which gives me another 8. So actually, I've got 16 outputs coming straight out of there. I've got 4 going in if I want to, and then I just just get inside the grid. You can set up sequencers. You can separate triggers from CV and just have them running in their own sequences and play around with phase and time. It's such a pleasure to use. It's a fun environment as well to use, and the fact that it's it's graphical based as well. You know, it's kind of node based. You're just essentially connecting things with wires and what have you. No coding required. It's really quite easy to get your head around, I think.
Yeah. Well,
it's
got the best built-in help. The software does have the best built-in help. The grid, especially the help, that blew us away when we looked at it. I mean, this is old news now in version 3, but that was, you know, again, one of these things where you kind of go, do you know, this is really pushing that 21st century, pushing things forward. So yeah, good on them. I'm a big supporter of them. I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. But like I say, we've got a video dropping tomorrow with Dave Lindenbank where we go into detail on some of those features. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming up on sonicstate.com.
Brilliant.
Tomorrow. Gosh, I almost sounded like a professional there. Okay, right. There were a couple of things that came in a little bit late, which one thing is these new Create audio modules, Mr. Filter and Captain Big O, which are I've got here actually, and I was playing them a little bit before the show in the pre-show. Really nice oscillator module, because I was thinking, because the Nifty case, which is what we've got here, we looked at that, and you know, the two modules were sort of dirty and digital. They weren't, you know, fabulous sounding, but the oscillator, I've got it next to the Pittsburgh modular, the original Dixie Core module there, and the comparison, I mean, honestly, the Captain, what's it called, Captain Big O, sounds bigger and beefier. It's a much hotter output, and the weight of some of those waveforms is great. And it's got wave folding built in, and it's got distortion built in across all waves. So you can patch, you know, your filter, your output of a particular wave into the folder, then out of the folder into the drive. You know, there's lots of possibilities there and lots of harmonic content. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, there isn't an awful lot to say. It's only just been announced, but I'm currently reviewing it. So let me just post this in the show notes. I know Richard Nicol from Pittsburgh Modular is a bit of an analog genius. I mean, I reach for his stuff a lot, so I'm not surprised it sounds good. Have you seen any of the Create audio? Any of you guys?
I'm literally just looking on the website now. Sorry, Gaz. Because I haven't actually used any myself, so I'm really looking forward to your video. I have been aware of the Nifty case. I believe that's theirs, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it is.
But this their website's quite funny, actually. Some of the stuff they've got now, like little toy pigs and stuff around the modules and stuff like that. These look really quite interesting. Fold inputs as well. Okay. Look quite, interesting. Gaz, sorry, was you going to say something? Have you used them?
No, but I have been in contact a lot with Rich Nicol about something else, so I've been aware about a lot of the stuff that's coming, and watch that. You know, there's a lot of cool things coming, and this the whole Create audio brand is trying to bring a lower entry point into modular, because these are cheap modules, aren't they? I mean, are they $99
well,
each?
I think the Mr. Filter is 149 list, probably 99. Captain Big O is, we think, 199, 149 street. So yeah, I mean, that's dollars. It's pretty, it's pretty affordable.
And that filter. That filter, you've got a filter, you've got amp, you've got VCA, and you've got an envelope in there with an ASR on it as well.
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
for like $149,
$99 probably is what.
$99. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yoad, you've been quiet because I know you're not. Modular and your world are difficult to combine in terms of workflow.
You know what? I'm trying to remember whether this thing that I have here with about 15 modules is Pittsburgh or the other company. And
that's how often you use it.
That's how much I don't use it. So
Dopefer, maybe Dopefer or Pittsburgh.
No, it's not Dopefer. It's
You can leave the chair and have a look if it's really if it's really troubling you. I think we can allow that.
I think it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, the Pittsburgh modular oscillators.
I mean, it sounds great. It sounds great. The last time I heard it, it sounded it sounded really good, but that was a while ago.
Yeah. I don't think it'll have gone off. I think it'll still be good. Guys,
The nifty case you've got there, though, I mean, that is worth pointing out as well, though, just for people who aren't aware of it, because it's a very well there's a lot of features on there, isn't it? And I think this comes in street $199,
and that's with I think that's with the two with cells and chips, which are the sort of entry level modules they've done. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, it's quite interesting. They're choosing a different price point really from modular, so maybe makes that a little bit more accessible. So I think that's certainly a cool thing. Can you just answer me though? There's an audio out built in. Is that is just mono though, or is that a TRS?
Well, but basically, the audio out at the back is a single mono, but you can sum left and right to it. I think what it does have is it's got a pair of CV gates, so you can have two MIDI channels, 1 and 2. I think it defaults to. Plus, I think there's a mod, so you've got effectively 2 channels of CV built in. I think there's a USB connection for some MIDI, and as far as I remember, I only just fired it up really, and I was droning on a little bit just before the show. I didn't really spend a lot of time.
MIDI DIN plugs on there as well.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was really. Let me just. I think I posted that link in the show notes, but I'll do it again in the chat just in case. Okay, so let me see. Now we had a couple of questions from a chap called Johan Bex who's emailed in and said, if you ever run short of topics, which we did last week, but we never got round to them. I thought I'd throw them in this week. So thanks, Johan, for throwing those in. But this is. His question was, how does each of the guests learn a new synth? Actually, before I do that, I should probably just go with our friends from Modal before I get into that. Modal Electronics Cobalt8. This is the 8-voice extended virtual analog synth, innovative oscillator with 34, actually more algorithms now, they've updated it since this. Morphable 4-pole ladder filter, all in DSP, 29 endless encoders for real-time control, internal sequencer, I beg your pardon, and arpeggiator, MPE support for expression, which is actually really cool, modal app for Mac, Windows, desktop, iOS, Android and VST3 AU. If you want to find out more, head over to bit.ly/get_modal. Thank you very much for their support. Well worth looking at, and also one of the prettiest looking synths, I think, in terms of colours. But that's by the by. So anyway, yes, back to the question. He wanted to ask, how does each of the guests learn a new synth? Do you take the manual and try everything as you read, or do you keep notes? Do you keep a list of notes for each synth and tips and tricks, or do you forget otherwise? I mean, I guess we could insert other parts of gear, other sorts of gear in here as well, if synths on something that you come across a lot. I'm going to start with you, Yoad. I don't know. I don't know whether you're a manual reader or whether you just like to get stuck in and see what it does.
So when I started, when I used to buy a new synth, and I'm talking about DX7, Oberheim, Matrix 8, Matrix 6, Kawai K5, which is an additive synth, and stuff like that, Roland stuff, all the not the D50 because I couldn't afford it, but I had the MT32 and
Classic.
things like that. Yeah, and so that was in the beginning. So those manuals kind of taught me about synthesis in a way. And especially additive synthesis and all the digital, that was a while ago. But back then I used to erase all the programs. So I used to initialize all the programs and start from scratch on everything. I'm talking about even like Proteus and things like that.
Wow.
So I used to spend hours and days and then trying to copy stuff which didn't have librarian software programs and things like that. So I spent years doing that, but that's how I learned, and obviously later through my work with Waves, developing synths and stuff like that, I learned a lot more. But that was a really good way of being in control and really starting from an oscillator and building it up on an additive system. It can be quite frustrating. on an FM, which we talked about, could be challenging as well.
I put it to you that the MT32 was probably the hardest of all, if because of the time.
It was. I had this this editor for the Atari ST that was great, but even before then, I used to program commands in Logic, pseudo events and stuff like that to edit the reverb and to do stuff. But it taught me so much. And also I used to organize it. So 1 to 10, I'm talking about 128 patches maximum or something like that, or even less. So 1 to 10 was bass. 11 to 20 to 19 was pads and pianos and bass and things like that. So they were all corresponding to the same program numbers. So I used to run a few things together. I used to spend years on doing that, and with stuff like the Matrix 6, where you have to dive through the menus. And all that, but that's the best way of learning. I mean, I guess because it's hands-on.
It is. It's interesting that, I mean, in many ways, the chat room is full of people saying manuals. What are they? Don't you mean PDFs? I mean, we don't actually have much of that stuff anymore.
Yes, I will just say one thing. As a developer of audio products, the last thing you want to have is your user opening the manual. So that's a big no-no. So these days, everything has to be on the screen, self-explanatory and ready, and at the tip of your fingers. If you have to resort to the manual, then you've done something wrong in the design or in the definition.
That's interesting. I mean, so that's quite a big change in terms of like what people would expect from that. I don't know, Matt. I mean, I suspect in modular stuff there probably aren't that many manuals, are there? There's just specifications, right?
No, man. There's a lot. In fact, I've got a specific shortcut on my desktop to modular manuals, which is just full of every PDF of everything I've got, and there's no shame in anyone jumping into those manuals when they're needed. But I think for me, ultimately, when I start off with either a module or a synthesizer, I guess I'm trying to discover first and foremost how I interact with it. What's the dialogue I have with it? Do I gel with it? Does it allow me to get results that are pleasing for me, that I'm after? And can I do that without much menu diving? For example, when I first got on an analog synth and it had a VCF and it had a VCA on it, these two different envelopes, I wasn't quite sure what they were doing or why you'd have two of these envelopes, and why would you have one for the filter? And I can understand one for the amplitude because you need, all that kind of stuff. So that's always like a starting point of what do they do. Then I was, playing around with something like a VCS3. I was fortunate enough to have my hands on one of those for a long time while I was at university, which has got a completely different interface in it. But I was kind of like, well, I guess it's my intrigue more than anything that drives me about learning a synth. It's the intrigue and the dialogue that I have with it more than, can I do this on it or can I do that on it? It's literally playing around with its interface and seeing where it takes me. And I can usually tell after 5 minutes if I'm not going to gel with this thing or not. And sometimes I'm wrong, because sometimes later on I'll be playing with it, the same synth at my mate's studio, and I'll be like, I didn't like this the first time I used it, but I'm really I'm getting into it now, and it just takes one person to say, oh yeah, did you not know you can just do this with it? And you're like, oh, well that was the key right there. And I didn't pick it up because, I'm also a little bit impatient with some of these things as well. Sometimes I buy a module, I'm like, oh god, that doesn't do anything like I thought it was going to do, and I put it to one side, and then I'll be sat here a couple of weeks later going, I just need this particular function. I wish I had something that did oh, hang on, this module that I sort of set aside. You
didn't know you needed it until you needed it.
Yeah, totally. So it's about exploration, and I guess that's that's how I learn them. And I'll put my hands up and say that I don't know all of these modules. There's quite a lot here. I don't know, I don't use every single function on them. I use the functions that I need to get the results that I'm after.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. The other synths like the Pulsar and stuff, I mean, that's got a lot of patch points on it that I still have not used at all. I don't know if I will use. I've just gravitated to those things that are working towards the sound that I'm after, basically.
Yeah, it's funny, Gaz.
I mean,
thank you. Back in the day, wasn't it? I mean, Yamaha and Roland manuals were the tomes, weren't they?
God, yeah.
They were dense.
They were all how to do things, but never any why would you want to do it. So so you'd have long how tos, but the why factor was always missing. I just grabbed a few manuals here. The Moog semi modulars all come with a nice, proper, really lovely illustrated manual. The Super 6 comes with a rather nice manual too.
That's a lovely thing, yeah.
They give you some patch ideas as well, don't they, Moog, in some of them?
They do. Tutorials and I love manuals. I love them. And usually, if I've got something on order, I'm really excited about it. I'll have read the manual from cover to cover before it's arrived. And I love them. I love them. I think, in a way, a manual is a good way to really get into the head of the creator, because I think a lot of the time that really special stuff you might find by accident, but you probably won't, especially things that are a little bit more abstract. But the thing that's most important for me for exploring a new synth is learning how to initialize a patch, and to do that, hopefully that's a really fast thing. I'll be talking about this later on my show tonight from 8 p.m. With regard to the Super 6. The Super 6, you press the shift button, then you hit the manual button, and it takes you to a starting sound, which is just like a single sawtooth, almost standard. That, for me, is the crucial thing. I remember going over to Modal and having a look at some of their 002 back in the early days, and I was going, how do you create an initial patch? It's like, oh no, you have to kind of go up to a free number and I didn't like that. It's like, no, you've got to, with a synth, you've got to be able to reset it like instantly. I think that's a really crucial design thing there.
I suppose so, but you don't get that with analog. I mean, it's where the front panel is, and you've got
it's true, but I mean, if you've got like these complex things, being able to get it into a default state, and what all of the things are set to, when you're looking at the controls, they're all over the place for sure. But if you know that, I think in the Super 6 manual, there's a picture of how all of the controls should be set at that initial sound. But I think that's really important. And I think another interesting thing there, again, I'm just referring with the Super 6, is the Super 6 doesn't do pickup MIDI. So any controls, pickup of the controls. So any presets, the moment that you adjust a parameter, it'll snap to that. You won't have to kind of move through it and find the pickup point. Now, that's a bit controversial.
I was playing with something recently, and I was finding that, and it was like, I don't want that. I want it to be where is it? Where is it now? But at the same time, there are times when you do want that, and it's usually when you don't understand what's going on. I mean, if I address this a little bit, I mean, when I've got a synth coming in, and it happens so often, and I'm ashamed to say, what I'll do is I'm working through. I generally won't read the manual unless I need to, but sometimes I also think I've read the manual and I haven't, and I ask them if I'm reviewing something, is it supposed to do this? And they said yes, it's in the manual, and you just think. Okay, well, I should have known. I should have looked. But sometimes, if it's a big manual, I'm trying to get to, like you, Matt, I'm trying to connect with the synthesizer. I don't want to read the whole thing to understand all the words that are written about it first. I want to feel where it's taking me and go, all right, well, if it's going in this direction, that means if it should be able to do this, right? And if it can't, I can't figure it out, then, like you say, yeah, it's a sort of, well, I suppose you can.
You can speed read a manual, though, because when you're looking through a manual, you pretty much know exactly what it's going to say. So I'm scanning over the manual, and then my eye will spot something that's a little bit kind of unexpected. So I think
I have
this manual skills.
Yeah, I have the old PDF, so I can do Command F. and just type in the word that I'm looking for, like ratchet or something, and that's how I get through and find things pretty quickly. And Gaz, I'm really looking forward to your show tonight, but actually, because the Super 6 was, just going back to what I was saying about learning a synth, was the last synth that I probably played on. I played on it at Super Booth, that I just totally got straight away. Within a couple of minutes, I had what I call a moment with it, where I just was like, I've got to get one of these things. It was so playable, it was so instant, it sounded amazing, and it was familiar as well in its layout.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So that allowed me to learn that quite quickly. And I think if I had one in front of me now, I think I'd get my head around it pretty quick.
And there are quite a lot of unexpected spots in it as well. That's the thing I remember when I was working with it. It's like you're going, and then suddenly there's this thing. It's like, oh, that's like where all the interactions come together, and it's more than the sum of the parts. You know, that works as well.
Did you? Oh, sorry. Did you know that there is there is a secret in the LFO that is called the Batwave modulator? Did you know that?
I did, because I did suggest that, actually. It was
that is your suggestion.
Because when you load wavetables into Oscillator 1, I think it is.
Not wavetables, just single sample waves.
Yeah, single sample waves. I said, well, that would be great if you could use that as the LFO as well, because then you'd have all sorts. And they went, yes, we'll do that. And they said we did that. So
now, you'd only know that if you read the manual. You see that it's there. That's one of those little things, because you have to hold shift when you choose the LFO select, and then it will choose whichever one you've loaded in to DDS1. Anyway, so that was kind of cool. Oh, there we are, the Batwave modulator for LFO.
I will. Just one last thing is worth mentioning is that what I love about the music technology communities is that you often find somebody who ends up writing an unofficial quick start guide to synthesizers as well, and they just drop it on Facebook as a PDF, and it's usually full of like a few, try this out first, and then try this out, and then you might want to try that, just things that you don't usually get in a manual. So communities are a great way to learn a synthesizer as well. And people doing these cool things just for nothing as well, and you can just tip them on PayPal for doing these sort of things as well. So it's another thing.
Well, as to the Johan Bex, who said, do you keep notes? Do you keep a list of notes for each synth for tips and tricks you forget otherwise? I don't, and I probably should. Because quite often, what I'm doing is I usually have the synth here while I'm doing other things, just getting to know it and going. Initial impressions is like, oh, it doesn't seem to do that, why not? And then that might be a question I ask someone. So I write notes in terms of things to ask the developer or things to ask the manufacturer, like, will it or can it, or have I missed something here? So, and I probably should, because often, it's like the dictaphone and having ideas. Sometimes you think, oh, I must try that. I wonder if that'll work. So I probably should, and it probably is a good idea.
I keep a lot of notebooks when I'm programming modular, and it's just full of just stuff like this, which is just patch ideas and what worked and what didn't work, and how to come up with a really cool, fat, distorted, reverbed stereo oscillator that and just signal paths and all this kind of stuff. And just go pop down the shop and get yourself some of these little Moleskine books as well. And sometimes when I'm sat in a pub as well, I'll take one of these with me. I'll sit and write down a few sort of like, oh, what ifs, and then come back and then actually try it out. It's just, yeah, I need to get out.
You're one of those guys who sits at the pub with a book taking notes. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know that. Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, there's something about a Moleskine, isn't there? That or an iPad or whatever. That
Well, yeah. I mean, I use an app on the iPad called Simple Mind, and I use it for all sorts of stuff. But you can't see it there. But doesn't matter. It's a.
Is it like a mind mapping kind of thing? App.
Yeah, and I'm finding it actually. Simple Mind is really good. I'm making some modular patches, but I'm doing it using Simple Mind and patching all the things together. And so that's something that I haven't really done before. I was out having a walk, listening to some. God, what was it? It was really early 70s modular experiments. Oh, blah blah blah. But I was struck with inspiration, and when I got home, I mind mapped all of the ideas that I was having, and I'm currently trying to put that all together at the moment. But using the mind mapping was really kind of cool because I was away from my modular rig, and I was just thinking about things in much more kind of musical senses, linking it up then as these thoughts with the mind map, and now I'm translating that into my modular rig. Yeah, that's something
Thanks.
that's new
Just
for me.
want to say thanks for the drink, Wagyu. I don't know if that'll come up.
Hey, Wagyu.
Me.
I don't know. To be honest, I can't actually. I don't think that sticker thing works. But thank you, Wagyu. That's very kind. That will go towards the when we can finally get together and have a drink fund. It's actually got to 5 o'clock. We haven't been through all the topics, so I mean, it feels like. Probably a good time to wrap things up. We might be able to save some of them for yet another week. As we get to the summer, sometimes these things do get a little bit quiet. But don't forget, if you want some more online action, both Matt and Gaz have got shows tonight. Matt is live streaming at 7 o'clock on his channel. If you just look at Maths.
I'll be sure to finish by 8, Gaz, for you. Don't worry. Not like anyone's going to be hanging around.
And Gaz is going to be doing his on at 7. No, at 8. Sorry.
8 p.m.
Yeah, on the UDO Super 6. Yoad, you feeling a bit left out? Do you kind of need? I haven't seen you live streaming recently. What would you live stream? Have you thought about like doing mix sessions and stuff like that, or is that more of a closed?
Yeah, I have, and everyone is doing stuff, and I'm kind of left out. I started shooting some stuff about mixing, but yeah, there's a thrill about doing it live. But it's just I need to gear up for that, and post it to all the right accounts and all that, and it's a lot of
that. Yeah, that's the thing.
I like to concentrate on this. You know what I mean? And on the music side of things rather than the visual and all that. But I know it's important, and whenever I do stuff with you with Sonicstate, we get such good responses that apparently people
maybe we could work something out.
Relate to that.
We'll just have your brain dump. You can, whenever you're ready to give it, we'll take it. It's fine. But well, one of the things that was really interesting about the Office Hours show that I was on yesterday is they have a much larger panel, but they have a much more disciplined kind of series of questions. So the first hour is just quickfire questions that any of the panel can answer. Second hour is questions to the focus, and yesterday I was the focus, but previously it might be kind of using multi-band compressors or whatever, and you get questions from the panel. It's a really interesting thing just to watch, and it really sparks a lot of synapses for some ideas for more content. So I'm considering it a lot at the moment. That's one of the reasons I made my multi-view here, so we can look at the screen. There we go. Simple Mind. That's the thing you were talking about, Gaz.
Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah.
So, I guess we're kind of at the end of the show. If you like what you've seen, please feel free to subscribe, ring the bell on YouTube. Always happy to have more subscribers. And, of course, you can always join us on Patreon if you want the pre-show. And all our pieces go up ad-free, assuming they're not monetized on YouTube. And there's also extra content I'll be posting that stems from my tomorrow Friday fun and all that kind of stuff. So please do support us if you feel the need. It's always much appreciated. So, guys, thank you so much for... I actually got before up, haven't I? I do that one. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. I think that's it. We're done, and I hope you all have a lovely week, and we'll see you all soon. So that's it for this week. See you all next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now.